Mistakes are not failures. They are silent teachers that show us what not to repeat. And when you truly begin to understand this, something inside you shifts. You stop fearing mistakes, yours or others, and you start listening to them. Every time someone around you stumbles, every time they make a choice that leads them into chaos or regret, there is a message hidden inside that moment, a message that life whispers only to those who are willing to pay attention. Most people look at mistakes as disasters, as proof of weakness, as reasons to give up. But if you look again, look deeper, those same mistakes are actually maps showing you where the pitfalls are, where the dead ends lie, and what roads you should never walk. Blindly think of how many times you have watched someone repeat the same habit that hurt them, the same attitude that pushed people away, the same decision that stole their peace. Those moments are not entertainment. They are lessons gifted to you without you having to pay the price for them. Instead of judging them or feeling superior, pause and ask yourself, what is life trying to teach me through this? What can I avoid because I witnessed this unfold? That is wisdom. That is emotional maturity. That is how you grow without bleeding. When you begin to see mistakes as silent teachers, you stop labeling yourself or others as failures. You start understanding that mistakes have purpose, direction, intention. They show you what not to do, who not to become, where not to invest your heart, and what patterns must never be repeated. They guide you like a quiet mentor, pointing towards safer choices and wiser decisions. And the more you observe, the more you realize that life is constantly teaching you in the most subtle ways. Every broken trust teaches you where to place boundaries. Every rushed decision someone regrets teaches you to pause. Every relationship that fell apart because of ego teaches you humility. Every dream someone abandoned teaches you the importance of consistency. Mistakes speak, but only to those who choose to listen. When you learn to listen, when you learn to observe without judgment, you become stronger, clearer, wiser, and far more prepared for your own journey. Because you are not only learning from your own scars, but from the silent lessons written in the lives of others. Observing others' struggles helps us shortcut our own journey by learning without experiencing the same pain. And if you truly pay attention, you will see how much wisdom is available simply by watching. Life doesn't require that you touch the flame to know it burns. You can watch someone else get burned. And if you are awake, if you are aware, you can step around the fire with careful steps. There are people everywhere who have faced the consequences of choices. Some small, some devastating, and their experiences are like mirrors reflecting possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. Too often we rush headlong into life thinking we must make every mistake ourselves to understand. But the truth is, pain is a teacher, yes, but you don't need to be its student directly every single time. Observing someone else's failures, their frustrations, their heartbreaks, their moments of regret, gives you the chance to learn faster, smarter, without carrying the weight of consequences on your own shoulders. The world is full of patterns, and human behavior is predictable if you watch closely. You will notice that certain decisions lead inevitably to struggle, that certain attitudes destroy relationships, that certain habits erode health, happiness, and peace. And when you see this unfolding before you, you gain clarity, you gain insight, you gain the ability to choose differently. You gain the chance to make a better decision, to build a stronger habit, to protect your heart and mind, to act with wisdom instead of impulsiveness. Observing is not passive, it is active learning. It requires attention, awareness, and honesty. You cannot simply watch and then say, "Oh, that's unfortunate." You have to reflect, question, analyze, and internalize. Every tear, every failure, every regret that you witness is a lesson in disguise, a guidepost pointing toward better choices. When you truly embrace this perspective, you understand that life doesn't have to be a series of repeated mistakes. You can move forward with acceleration, confidence, and clarity, because the struggles you observe in others become your own invisible guide, showing you the paths to avoid, the traps to sidestep, and the wiser, brighter road that leads to success, peace, and fulfillment. Every person you meet is carrying a story. Learn from their choices, their patterns, their outcomes, and if you open your eyes and your heart, you will realize how much guidance exists around you in the lives of others. People are not just passing figures in your world, they are living examples of decisions made, paths chosen, risks taken, and lessons earned. And their journeys carry messages if you are willing to read between the lines. Too often we focus only on ourselves, on our own path, our own mistakes, our own victories, forgetting that the world is full of experiences waiting to teach us. Someone may seem ordinary, but their life may hold extraordinary lessons, how they handled loss, how they pursued dreams, how they reacted when the world turned against them. Every conversation, every interaction, every observation is an opportunity to understand consequences before they happen to you. When you see someone repeating a behavior that leads them into pain, you can pause and reflect, if I followed this same choice, what would happen to me? When you witness someone being courageous in the face of fear, you can learn how to summon your own courage. When you notice someone losing themselves in pride, anger, or impatience, you are shown clearly what you must avoid. The beauty of observing others is that it gives you insight without cost, understanding without sacrifice. You gain wisdom simply by paying attention, simply by valuing the story that each person carries. Every decision someone else makes becomes a lesson in what works and what doesn't. And by studying these patterns, you strengthen your ability to make better decisions for yourself. The world becomes a living textbook, and you are the student, reading, analyzing, and internalizing every outcome you see. Human behavior is not random. It follows rhythm, it leaves trails, it tells you where happiness thrives and where destruction lurks. By learning from people's choices, you become proactive instead of reactive, intentional instead of impulsive, and strong instead of fragile. Because you are no longer dependent solely on your own mistakes to teach you. You are guided by the lessons etched in the lives of everyone you encounter. And through this, your path becomes clearer, safer, and infinitely wiser. Growth begins when you stop judging mistakes and start extracting lessons from them. Because judgment keeps you stuck in a loop of negativity, criticism, and fear, while learning transforms even the harshest experiences into stepping stones. When you see someone fail or stumble, your first instinct might be to label them as careless, weak, or incapable. But that reaction only blinds you to the deeper message hiding beneath the surface. Every mistake carries information about choices, priorities, consequences, and human nature. But if you are busy judging, you miss it entirely. To grow, you must pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What insight can I gain here that will help me navigate my own life more wisely? Imagine if every person who crossed your path, every story you witnessed, every failure you observed became a source of wisdom rather than fodder for criticism. You would begin to see life as a vast classroom where nothing is wasted, where even pain, disappointment, and errors are resources for your development. Extracting lessons requires humility and curiosity. You must admit that you don't know everything, that life can surprise you, that the experiences of others are valuable guides if you are willing to learn. When you stop judging, you also stop comparing. And when comparison ceases, anxiety fades and clarity emerges. The process of learning from mistakes, whether yours or others, teaches patience, resilience, and strategic thinking. You begin to recognize patterns, understand risks, and anticipate outcomes with a precision that judgment never allows. Mistakes then become blueprints, not burdens, and every failure witnessed becomes a mirror reflecting what choices lead to growth and which ones lead to stagnation or harm. Your mind opens, your heart expands, and your actions become more intentional because you are no longer reacting emotionally to what went wrong. You are analyzing, integrating, and applying lessons in real time. Growth is not passive, it is an active, conscious effort to transform errors into wisdom, to see opportunity in what others perceive as misfortune, and to build a foundation for a stronger, wiser, and more resilient self. Through the insight drawn from observing, understanding, and learning from mistakes. People's mistakes teach us empathy, resilience, boundaries, and emotional maturity. And when you truly pay attention, you realize that every error you witness is like a hidden lesson waiting to shape you into a stronger, wiser human being. Empathy grows when you observe someone struggling. Not just their failure, but the fear, frustration, and vulnerability behind it. You begin to understand that mistakes are never isolated. They are tied to emotions, circumstances, and decisions made under pressure. When someone falters, instead of rushing to judge, pause and consider the human behind the error. Imagine how liberating it is to see mistakes as a bridge to understanding, rather than a wall of criticism. You begin to feel compassion for their journey, and in doing so, you develop emotional depth that allows you to connect with others in ways superficial knowledge never could. Resilience comes from watching consequences unfold and learning how not to be crushed by them yourself. Seeing someone else rise after failure teaches you that setbacks are temporary, that courage is born from persistence, and that falling does not define a person. What defines them is the strength to stand again. Boundaries are another invaluable lesson embedded in the mistakes of others. When you witness someone overextending themselves, losing themselves in relationships, or failing to protect their time and energy, you gain clarity about where to draw your own lines. You learn what to accept, what to avoid, and how to safeguard your well-being without guilt or fear. Emotional maturity grows when you internalize these lessons and begin to act with intention rather than reaction. Every mistake you observe becomes a guidepost, showing you how to respond wisely, how to manage expectations, and how to communicate with clarity and patience. You start understanding that life is not about perfection, but about progress. By studying the choices, errors, and outcomes of others, you equip yourself with the tools to navigate your own path with greater empathy, stronger resilience, firmer boundaries, and a higher level of emotional intelligence that transforms your interactions, decisions, and ultimately your life trajectory. Your success depends not only on what you learn, but also on what you avoid repeating. And this is a truth that many people overlook, because they are so focused on doing the right things that they forget the power of avoiding the wrong ones. Every choice you witness in someone else's life, every error, every poor decision, every moment of regret, is like a warning light flashing on your own path, showing you where the traps lie, where shortcuts fail, and where pride, haste, or ignorance can cost more than you are willing to pay. Observing these mistakes gives you an advantage that no amount of luck or talent can provide. You begin to recognize patterns, and once you recognize patterns, you can navigate life with foresight instead of hindsight. Life stops being a game of trial and error when you actively avoid repeating the missteps you have seen in others. Avoiding doesn't mean you never take risks. It means you take informed risks with clarity about what could go wrong and how to prevent it. Every failed decision you witness becomes a blueprint for what not to do, and when you internalize these lessons, you start moving faster, safer, and with more confidence than those who insist on learning only through personal pain. Success is cumulative, and it builds not only on action, but on strategic inaction. The conscious choice to step away from the paths that have proven harmful. When you honor the lessons embedded in the failures around you, you develop discernment. You learn to say no to opportunities that seem shiny but are risky, to relationships that seem enticing but are destructive, and to habits that seem harmless but erode your future. Avoiding repetition of mistakes also fosters patience and reflection, because you start asking yourself before every decision, have I seen this happen before? Did it end well for the person who did it? What can I do differently? This practice trains your mind to think critically, act deliberately, and prioritize long-term growth over short-term gratification. The distance between failure and success shrinks dramatically when you learn to avoid the missteps that others have already paid the price for. Because your awareness becomes a shield, your observation becomes a compass, and your wisdom becomes the silent engine propelling you toward consistent achievement.